revised final development plan for First Funeral Home. That covers the agenda items. I do note on the discussion topic for this evening is the sign code amendment update. Do we have a presentation or discussion point?
Yeah, I have a short presentation.
Great.
So over a year ago, a previous planning commission initiated this sign code amendment. So this has been going on for quite a while. In the zoning ordinance, either the planning commission or the city council governing body can initiate an amendment to the code. And so what occurred at that time was there was a draft made of a draft sign code amendment completed. There was a committee formed. They reviewed that in the spring of 2012. That went before the commission, and it was pretty close to being acted on. In the summer, we got a new city administrator, and she anticipated the hiring of a community development director. At that time, there was not a community development director in place. There was one planner on staff, and she wanted to take a closer look at this and give me the opportunity, frankly, to take a closer look at it. And so we've done that. I've noted some things in the draft that I think we want to take a closer look at anyway. And so that's really where we are. We haven't really done much with it in the past 6 months. So we wanted to give you this update to let you know that we're planning on working on this. Again, this has already been initiated, but you should also have the opportunity, if you have any input, to provide that input. Sign regulations are in Chapter 18.170 of the zoning ordinance. It's typical for sign regulations to be in the zoning ordinance. The purpose of this amendment is to create a more complete, user-friendly, and effective sign code. I can tell you in processing sign permit applications that a lot of issues arise, a lot of questions about the code and how to interpret certain things, and there are certain types of signage that just are not provided for in the code. So it really does need work. I can attest to that. I want to explain a little bit about sign permitting and how sign regulations work, because I'm not sure everybody understands this, but any type of business sign requires a sign permit. Someone that's moving into a business, and it's not something they usually think of until, quite often they don't think of until the last 2 months before they move into a space. They come and apply for a sign permit. It's something that can be issued by staff, so it doesn't require action by the commission or any other body, as long as it meets the code. If it does not meet the code, then it requires a variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals. A variance is a difficult process, especially for signs. And so, if you do not have a sign ordinance that works effectively, efficiently, and is responsive to the practical needs, but also addresses the potential downsides of improper signage, then it creates a lot of anguish and unnecessary delays, and really creates customer service problems, which really bothers me personally. So just about any sign you see out there requires a permit. One thing you do want to do is you want to have regulations that are effective and are fair enough that people aren't discouraged from actually getting a sign permit. Because there are signs out there that do not have sign permits. They just happen to be out there. I'm going to go through a couple examples. This is Arvest Bank, and this is the building that's under construction now. If you want to look if you have your sign code with you or your zoning ordinance with you, you can actually look in the regulations and kind of follow along to some extent. So this is a property that's located in the C1 district. C1 district is I can't even remember what the name of the district is, but it's the district that is probably the more restrictive of the commercial districts. And the historic downtown part of Gardner is Zone C1. In the C1 zone, someone is permitted to have, I'm going to read this out of the code because I don't want to get this wrong. What it states in here is that each business or commercial establishment shall be permitted not more than 2 non-illuminated, semi-illuminated, or indirectly illuminated wall signs, not more than 1 on a facade. Simple way to say that is, if a business is going in, they can have 2 wall signs, 1 on each facade. They can't have 2 wall signs or multiple wall signs on a single facade. It also states that in lieu of one of those signs, and in place of one of those signs, they can have a freestanding sign. Just about any business like this is going to want a freestanding sign. So in the case of Arvest Bank, they are getting a freestanding sign, freestanding or a monument sign. That's a sign that is ground mounted, it's not attached to the building. They're getting that, so that means they're permitted only 1 sign on the building. So when you look at this elevation drawing, the top elevation is the elevation that faces the street, and they have their sign on the face of that building. The bottom elevation is the elevation that faces the parking lot, and you can see a blue rectangle. That is a variable message display sign, not an electronic sign, but a sign that they can change out. They were issued a permit, but the permit did not include that sign on the side of the building that faces the parking lot because that doesn't comply with the regulations. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just giving you some real example of how the sign code works in downtown Gardner. This is a sign for the school district, Grand Star Elementary. And this is a monument sign. It has the message part of the sign, what we call a static message, in other words, a message that cannot be changed. And then the part of the sign that where you see the flag, that is a variable message, an electronic variable message part of the sign. This is also called an electronic message display sign. These signs can be controlled in such a way that they can have scrolling text, they can have text that changes, it can change every 5 seconds, it can change every 10 seconds, and these signs are typically designed so they can have animation. So constantly, rapidly moving display. There is nothing in our sign code that specifically addresses electronic message display. There is something in here, it is in section 18.170.140, paragraph A. No sign or other advertising structure shall include attention-attracting devices. And if you look at the definitions, in the beginning of the zoning ordinance, I believe it's chapter 2, it defines attention-attracting devices and includes a number of adjectives, includes a number of things that describe attention-attracting devices, and one of those is animation. So it's difficult, as you can see, it's not entirely clear what you can do, but it does not tell you what to do in the event someone has an electronic message display. So that's one of the problems. This particular property where Grand Star Elementary is located is in an R1 zone. This is the site, and the arrow is pointing to where the monument sign is. I think you can make out the building pretty well here. It's interesting, in an R1 zone, the regulations do not provide much signage in the event of a school or a similar institutional use if it happens to be in an R1 zone. However, the zoning ordinance allows those types of uses through different means. I think through a preliminary development plan it's permitted, allows that type of use in that zone. It just does not provide a lot of signage opportunities. So, again, I think this is something for discussion, but is it appropriate that a